Welcome to 9.3's Math Moment. Today in 6th grade, students compared and ordered integers. One of the very first things that students were really working with today was a number line. They were using this a lot to compare in class. So it's really important that the students go ahead and use this as they're solving their homework or as they're working on problems. This number line is really going to help them as they're working with negative and positive numbers and becoming more familiar with what those negative and positive numbers indicate. So the very first question says to compare using a greater than, less than, or equal to sign. One of the things that students might be familiar with is thinking about making this like a little alligator mouth and thinking about that we're always going to try to eat the larger number. So making sure that they've always thought about that, whatever it's pointing to is going to indicate that the larger number is going to be eating. So when I look at this, I'm going to go ahead and look at -4. Here's -4 on my number line compared to 0. Well, when I think about this, -4 is definitely moving towards the left, which means every time I move to the left, my numbers are going to be getting smaller, and 0 is in the middle. So when I look at this number, I know that my 0 is larger than my -4. And as a second example, I need to compare a negative number and another negative number. So when I look at this, I'm going to have my -6 and my -8. I see that my -6 is only 6 away from 0, while my -8 is 8 away. So in this case, -6 is larger than my -8. One thing that students can think about with negative numbers too is think about money. If I've borrowed money from a friend, I'd rather owe them $6 than $8 because 6 is going to be less. Now look at this next one, we have a negative and a positive number. I've got a +1 and a -2. Obviously in this case the +1 is going to be larger than the -2. Alright, this is to use the number line again for example 2, ordering the numbers from least to greatest. So again, really encourage your student to look at the numbers and think about where they're going to go. We're going to go from our least to our greatest. Again, make sure the student is carefully reading the directions on which way they want them to move. So ordering from least to greatest, I'm going to start with my negative numbers. First, I've got -6 and I've got -8. I know -8 is going to be the smallest amount. Then I'm going to cross it off. I've got -6. Then I look at my other numbers. I've got a 0 and then I've got my 2 and my 5, my 5 and my 2. So I'm going to put my 0 down and then 2 and 5. So I've ordered these numbers from least to greatest. Moving on to example 3, it says using absolute value to compare these numbers. We've got -5 and -3. Using absolute value means that we're going to see how many away this number is from 0. So when I look at the -5, I'm going to hop back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 0. When I use the -3, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to hop back 3. When I think about this again, I looked at -3 is definitely going to be closer to my 0, so I know that my -3 is larger than my -5. If you have any questions about today's math lesson, make sure you see your math teacher.